lot of people are gonna be mad at me. Yay. Back to a brand new video today on the channel, and today we are going to be reviewing the highly anticipated The Flash. Now, if you don't know, this film was directed by Andy Muschietti and stars such people as Ezra Miller, Michael Keaton, Sasha Calle, Ben Affleck, and Michael Shannon. This movie follows Barry Allen, aka The Flash, as he attempts to go back in time to prevent the death of his mother. But in doing so, Barry seemingly breaks reality and changes the course of history, creating a new timeline. As an example, in this timeline, Superman doesn't exist, but instead, Supergirl exists. But also in this timeline, Batman is played by Michael Keaton, who played Batman in the original Tim Burton movies. So Barry must find a way to fix reality and save the world from Zod, who also is back in this movie. That's all I'm going to say without spoiling you guys, but The Flash. This was a movie I was pretty excited for. I had a lot of anticipation for this movie. So I was really pleasantly surprised when I started seeing the reviews. People saying, oh, this is the best comic book movie ever made. This is the best DC movie ever made. And some people going as far as saying it's better than Across the Spider-Verse, which didn't meet all that hype. Is this movie really as good as everyone is saying it is?
No.
I do want to stress, is this movie a bad movie? No. Is it the best DC movie ever made? No, but I can see where you're coming from if you say that. Is this movie the best comic book movie ever made? Hell no, bro. No, absolutely not. It isn't bad. Like, I do want to say, it isn't bad, but it is not nearly as good as what people are saying it is. It is not nearly as good, and I'm kind of getting a little bit sick of hearing people talk about it. Now, I'm going to start off by saying this. I do not condone the actions that Ezra Miller has done. It obviously seems like he has some issues. I'm not going to go fully into that. If you know, you know. But in this movie, taking away all his personal life stuff and everything that's happened, I thought he did a great job in this movie. I won't lie. I think he did a great job. I really didn't like Ezra Miller's portrayal of the Flash in previous films. I thought he was very incompetent and very annoying. And they very much played him as the new superhero who didn't really know what he was doing and was always fumbling around and stumbling and making really awkward and cringy jokes. Glad to say in this movie he did a lot, and I do mean a lot better. It almost feels like a completely different character in a way. But not in a bad way. It actually feels just like a genuine character growth, where you can genuinely see how this character has progressed and developed from Justice League off screen. I thought it was actually a pretty good thing that they actually made him a likable character. I know that's crazy how that works, but he actually was really good in this movie. He's funny in this movie. He's actually likable. They give him an arc in this movie, and a lesson is learned that I thought was a really good lesson, and that's the lesson of you can't take everything for granted. You can't go back and change something, especially, and to just let go. Like, you know, move on with your life and don't dwell on the past, which I thought was a great message for this movie. I want to get into that a little bit later, but for the most part, I thought it was really good. And I thought Ezra Miller brought a lot of really good emotion to this movie, as there are key emotional beats that he does hit in this movie, and I thought he did a good job. I wasn't crying or anything, but I thought he did a damn good job. I also really like the decision of making there be two Barry Allen in this movie. One Barry Allen is our very confident main protagonist, and then the other one is literally everything I described with the Justice League one, but it works because that's what they're going for. What they're trying to do is show the audience how the character has grown from the last time we saw him, and I really appreciated that, and I actually thought they did a pretty good job on that, actually. I actually thought he was funny for the most part. I actually didn't think he was, like, too annoying, even though that was the point. He was supposed to be obnoxious, which I think they did a great job with, but I think just it gave a really good contrast to what our Barry Allen is, opposed to what he was before, and him actually cringing at some of the stuff he's done before. They're like key moments in the movie where he goes, God, I can't believe I was this insufferable. And that's funny. I thought that was great, and I thought that was a very almost self-aware type of humor that worked for me. It did really work. And can we just get the obvious out of the way right now? Michael Keaton is friggin' fantastic in this movie. I don't think anyone was expecting otherwise. It's Michael Keaton, for Pete's sake. He does good in basically everything he's in, but his interpretation of Batman is still one of my favorites to this day. I absolutely loved him in this movie. I thought he was fantastic. I thought he had the best action scenes in the movie, 100%. And I thought he just gave the fans the most. If you want fan service, he's definitely the character for you. But this movie also doesn't really fall back on fan service. There are moments where it does. But I actually thought Michael Keaton's Batman actually made sense for the most part of why he was there. And he gave us the best action scenes in the movie. And there were a lot of really cool nods to the old Tim Burton movies that I actually really liked as well. And I'll say this too, I really liked Sasha Calle's interpretation of Supergirl. I thought what they did with her character was actually pretty unique opposed to the regular Superman archetype, where she is much more cold, she's much more like, I guess you could say, shut in. She doesn't really care about humans that much. There's a specific arc that they try to give her in this movie, and that's all cool. But they really didn't give her character a whole lot to do. She shows up at one point and then she's just there, and they give her an interesting dilemma at a point, but then they kind of just say, whatever, we gotta get on to the next scene. So they kind of just forget it in like a matter of minutes, which is kind of unfortunate because it could have been pretty interesting. But she's fine. For what they give her, she's good. Like, she's not awful, but I definitely wanted them to give her more because I definitely feel like she's the most underutilized part of this movie. And another really quick thing, I really like how they portray time travel in this movie. Every single movie that deals with this sort of thing has a different way of explaining how their time travel works. And I actually thought that this movie did a great job at explaining what the time travel element of this movie was going to be like. It's all very different, but it's very simple to explain. There's a really great scene with Michael Keaton's Batman where he's explaining how time travel works in this universe, and it's very easy to explain, and it also leads to a lot of really cool possibilities, and possibilities that aren't entirely relying on fan service. I'm not going to spoil that directly because I don't want to outright say what the time travel element of this movie is, but I thought it was a very interesting way of doing it. I actually quite liked it. It fit the story very well, and I wouldn't mind seeing more of that in the future. And also, I honestly thought there was just some good writing in general in this movie. I thought the plot for the most part was very engaging and very interesting. I was constantly on the edge of my seat trying to figure out where everything was gonna go, and I thought the plot for the most part was actually pretty great. I like time travel movies, I'm a sucker for them, what can I say? But I genuinely thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was very interesting, and I was really a big fan of how it was going until about the end, which I'm going to talk about later. And what I'm going to end this segment off with is that I really love, in this movie, particular the first 15 minutes, how the DCEU finally feels like a universe. In every other film, it felt very standalone, like there was one movie going on at a time, there was this one big thing that the one character was focusing on. It felt like the world wasn't fleshed out. It felt like, honestly, just very singular stories, which is fine, but the whole point of the DCU was to make this big connecting universe. And the first 15 minutes of this movie really gave me that feel. It gave me that comic book feel. This movie feels like a giant comic book come to life. Some things are great in the movie that I think really excel with this sort of thing, and other things that I'm going to talk about later, and I know I keep alluding to that, but stay with me. But I still do really appreciate how they took the more comic book aspects of the Flash character and put him into this movie. I thought they did a great job with it, and it added to a lot of really cool and interesting ideas, I'll say. A lot of really cool ideas for fight scenes, and maybe just little moments here or there. I don't want to spoil them outright, but I like how this movie felt like a universe and a comic book, all for that. But all in all, that's kind of where my positives end with this movie. I think a lot of people know what I'm about to say next, but my biggest criticism that I could say about this movie, and everyone has talked about it to death, and some people are going to roll their eyes and go, oh my god, we're talking about this again. But we are, because it's important and it affects the whole movie, and I'm tired of people saying it doesn't. And that is the awful looking CGI. I don't know what they were thinking when they were making some of this CGI and approving it. How did some of this actually get approved and put into the main cut of the movie? Like, honestly. And I do want to address, the director has come out and said that the weird CGI was on purpose. Sure it was. Sure the weird CGI was on purpose. It's not like you're just trying to make a smoke screen because you're like, oh wow, it is really bad. We should just tell them that because they're a bunch of idiots. Yeah, I'm not an idiot. Some scenes I could see you getting away with that because he described it very much of scenes when the Flash is in sort of his own perspective. I'm not going to directly say what. In those scenes, yes, okay, fine. If you want to say that the CGI looked weird on purpose, fine. But there's no indication to the audience that it's supposed to look like that. So I'm just going to say it looks bad and you didn't care. Because all this movie, it looks so incredibly awful. There are like, what, 3 good fight scenes in this movie? all with Michael Keaton's Batman. The rest just look like a video game. And I say that in the worst way possible. They don't look real. Everyone looks like a claymation. It's not on the same level as the CW show, but you're getting close. And it took away from a lot of the really cool moments that they put in the movie specifically for you to go, oh shit, like those moments, they're all undermined by this CGI and it looks awful. I'm so sad, honestly, because some of these moments in this movie could have been freaking amazing, some of the fight scenes, but I couldn't help but wonder, wow, that CGI looks awful. And it goes further from it just looking bad. Like, there's a certain sequence very early on in the movie where the Flash is forced to save some babies, let's say, from an unfortunate circumstance. How am I supposed to get sucked into a scene like this, where there's supposed to be dire consequences, when nothing looks real? You're looking at this scene when it happens in front of you and you're going, well, that's not a real person, that's not a real person, that's not a real person. So why should I care? The whole point of CGI is almost to trick your brain into thinking that's a real thing. And in this movie, you just don't get that because it looks all so terrible. I'm sorry, it's just bad. And also, this is a really quick thing. I just want to say this though. There's a choice made very late in the film where I was talking about the message of this movie and Barry Allen's whole arc, I guess you could say. And I didn't want to outright spoil it. But I feel like they undo his arc by the end of this movie. I think you'll know what I mean, but if you watch the movie, and it was kind of an infuriating moment because he's learned everything throughout the movie and he's learned all this stuff. And it really does seem like he has learned something by the end of the movie. But then they do a really quick switch up by the end of the movie. And it's kind of infuriating because it's like, he should have learned that he should not have done that. Like, that's a key point in the movie. It's like, he really shouldn't have done that. He knows better. And the whole movie has prepared him to that point. But it feels like the filmmakers were like, alright, no, we just want to do the one little thing at the end because no reason. Like, I understand. It was cool, the last moment. It was great. But why? What was the point of it? You kind of destroyed that part of the movie, in my opinion, and it was just very strange and out of place. And also, I do want to say this movie has a villain. I'm not going to outright say who it is, because it might be a little bit of a spoiler, but I do want to say very quickly and very easily, this villain is very underdeveloped. He's in like 3 scenes. I understand the point of him, I really do, but I think the character could have been given a lot more to make him more interesting and more important to the plot in general, because he kind of just shows up and you get it, but it didn't really need to be there. I honestly felt this movie kind of would have been stronger if he wasn't in the movie, but you know, it happens. I guess he served a purpose, but I think he could have been way more developed. But honestly, that's all I'm going to say about this movie. This movie is good. I'll say that. It's not bad. I don't think it's that bad. There are competent elements to this movie. I thought the acting was all really strong. There were a couple of really great moments, particularly by Michael Keaton's Batman, but it was all undermined by this terrible CGI that just really gave me a bad taste in my mouth and just made everything look fake, which is so unfortunate. But I'm going to give this movie a 6.5 out of 10. I don't think it's quite as bad as some of the other films I've seen, like Quantumania, but it's close. It's definitely close. It's not the best movie of all time, and it's definitely not the best comic book movie of all time, or even this year, honestly. I don't understand that. But if you like to think that, that's cool. Like, this could be your favorite movie. I just don't agree with you. I don't think this movie is as good as everyone's saying, but it's definitely not a bad movie in general. But anyways, if you like this video, please like and subscribe down below for more content on the channel coming pretty damn soon, and I'm going to see y'all in the next one. See ya.